Yes, are you ready to be entertained? What else do you say ahead of an India-Pakistan game at an ICC World Cup? Hello and welcome to a WION special broadcast with me, Digvijay Singh Deo. We are calling this show Desert Storm, and we have cricketing royalty with us to set this up. It's getting rather late in Brisbane, but one of the greatest coaches in the sport has decided to stay up and give us a neutral take on this rivalry. Delighted to have John Buchanan join us on the show. If you need any reminding, then he was coach of Australia from 1999 to 2007. He led that team to 2 World Cups and a Champions Trophy as well. The thing is, John, that, we in India sort of take our cricket very seriously, and the Indian cricket fan seems to remember the 2003 World Cup as well. We can see that screen behind you, but they also remember the Kolkata Test match.
That's right. You've got to keep life in balance, haven't you, Diggy? Certainly, the picture behind me was a very treasured moment in my coaching career, and that was that first World Cup and against India back in Johannesburg. Yes, sometime before that, there was that famous end of our 16 Test run in Kolkata, and again, a memorable game. But as you say, it's nice to keep all these games in perspective a little bit.
Yes, in fact, as you were speaking, we had all those runs just play up alongside you. But we are here to talk about India versus Pakistan. Now, in Australia, you have the Ashes, which is the sort of defining rivalry with England. You also have the Trans-Tasman rivalry with New Zealand, John. But, just give us a neutral perspective of this. When it comes to the sheer emotions, perhaps there's nothing as bigger than India and Pakistan.
No, I think not. Even if you throw the Barmy Army in and a few other odds and sods, in the crowd, there's nothing like the emotion, the feeling, the noise, the absolute passion for the game that both Indians and Pakistan show. And I've not had the privilege of being at one of those games, but certainly have watched, and it must be an incredible atmosphere to be there. I've got an Indian business partner. He's a partner in a company called Ads Guru, and which is a marketing company, and he hasn't been, and his staff haven't been sort of been able to concentrate on doing their job at the moment because it's all been about this particular game.
Okay, very quickly, John, how do you as a neutral, see this game? Because away from the hype, the fact remains that it's been a pretty one-sided rivalry. India haven't lost to Pakistan in white ball cricket in terms of World Cup matches. I think it's 12-0 at the moment. So sort of how do you look at this from the outside?
Well, look, the first thing is that your first game of a World Cup tournament, it's always a tricky one, as we just saw last night between South Africa and Australia. It's both teams are not quite sure of each other, that all the individuals have played against each other on a number of occasions, particularly in the IPL these days. But nonetheless, representing your country and playing in the first game of a tournament is always a little bit uncertain. And so while India would, to me on paper, certainly be strong favourites going into the game, Pakistan have, a few cards up their sleeve, top order bats and their opening bowling attack. Could do some damage and may be able to challenge India throughout the course of a T20 game.
Okay, we're going to get John to expand on all those points. Let's quickly set up the game then. A high-octane rivalry is set to ignite the men's T20 Cricket World Cup later this evening as former champions India and Pakistan clash in their tournament openers in Dubai. It is the first meeting between the two neighbours in over 2 years, and the first in this format since the last World Cup 5.5 years ago. India have been a consistent threat at all ICC events over the last decade, but they haven't won a World Cup since their 50-over triumph on home soil in 2011. This tournament presents an excellent chance to end that drought. India ranked number 2 in the world in this format and they boast one of the strongest squads on paper, both with the bat and with the ball. They've also had the benefit of playing in the UAE for the last month and a half in the IPL, and they are well versed with the conditions on offer. Now, if India are among the favourites and Pakistan are the dark horses, their preparations were marred by New Zealand and England pulling out of a scheduled series, but the UAE has long been the team's second home. They too boast a formidable squad that is capable of beating the best on their day, which is reflected in their current world ranking of number 3. But they do have the weight of history against them for their opener against India. In 12 meetings across the 50-over and T20 World Cups, Pakistan have never been able to beat their arch rivals.
You know, a game like this, there's such unnecessary stuff from a professional point of view happening on the outside that it's fine. It's fine as long as that stays outside, our controlled environment, and we just focus on what we need to do as cricketers. And hence, I always maintain that for me, it's never been different to any other game of cricket that we play. Yes, the atmosphere in the stadium is different, and our mindset is not different, our preparations are not different, and our approach to the game is also certainly not different.
We have to keep things simple, we have to stay relaxed and stick to the basics. That's what will help us. We have told all the players to stay relaxed, that preparation is in our hands, we will give our 100%, we have the confidence that we can play good cricket on the day. Whatever has happened in the past, we don't want to focus on that. We want to focus on what lies ahead.
John, we've heard from both captains there. Virat Kohli saying that, this game for us is something we just have to go and play. For Pakistan, Babar Azam more or less saying that, we've got to forget the past. Now, you've been in charge for high-pressure games. How do you sort of build up your teams, and how do you prepare them for something which can be emotionally very challenging?
Yeah, look, it is a challenge. I mean, obviously Virat and Babar Azam have said exactly the right things there, and those words would have been spoken quite a bit within the dressing rooms by coaches, by captains, by senior leaders in the team. That, in a sense, it is another game. However, there is, incredible hype around this game, or as you go into finals in a tournament and so on. There's incredible hype around the result of the game, and a lot of things hinge on that. I mean, they're representing their countries, and they carry the weight of their countries on their shoulders. But as Virat said, I mean, if that's allowed to find its way into the dressing room, then that can create quite a deal of unnecessary wasted energy, unnecessary wasted anxiety, unnecessary conversation, and probably the wrong type of conversation and the wrong type of mindset, which he also alluded to there. So it is really trying to make sure that the players are as well prepared as they can be for a particular game. Then it's really over to that individual. It's over to that individual then to understand that they've done all that they possibly can do. Then once they step onto the field, it's time to actually let those skills do the talking for them. And of course, that's what the good players and the really great players do. They have that capacity to be able to compartmentalise the game, the situation, and make, one, good decisions, and then two, be able to execute those decisions.
Okay, John, lots of positives in a sense then, just listening to you for the Indian side, because they know these conditions pretty well. They've played the IPL there. And you sort of get a feeling, considering how this Indian team has performed over the last 5 to 6 years, that they know how to handle the occasion better. At times, it just comes down to that.
Well, it can do. And look, my experience with Pakistan in a number of tournaments and cups and so on is that they are quite erratic starters. But if they somehow remain in a tournament, if they keep themselves in with a chance to make semi-finals and so on, they actually become quite dangerous. They really start to gel and become a very, very powerful unit. So that's another, I think, at least from my experience anyway, another advantage to try to get Pakistan early in a tournament before they actually really get underway. But of course, that's why we really enjoy sport, because the favourites not always get up. Sport is about really anything can happen. And in T20 cricket, we see that time and time again. We've seen it through the IPL more and more each time that, one player can win a game in T20 cricket because, one ball out of 120 is almost 1% of an innings. One ball in 300 balls is 0.03. So you get the drift that, each ball has a significant impact on the game in T20 cricket. Therefore, individuals can have greater impact in winning or losing the game.
Okay, and that's what they say about Pakistan, is that over 50 overs, there could be too much of chaos, there could be too much time for them, but in 20-over cricket, it's probably their best shot at winning something big. But what we have seen over the last month is that you've got to respect the conditions in the UAE. These are not going to be 200-plus wickets like in that first World T20 in South Africa. I mean, just look at the IPL. The swing was, 130 to 167 batting first, apart from the final where Faf du Plessis played a blinder. Do you think that already, with the pitches being the way they are, the power hitters are at a disadvantage?
Yes, not necessarily so, but you're correct in what you're saying, that the conditions will always dictate the way that your game plan and your strategies need to be actually moulded to fit the circumstances, and then we've got day games versus night games, and that can change things as well. We've just seen Bangladesh make 172, I think, against Sri Lanka in the first innings, so I think there will be times where those scores can push upwards 170, 180, but that's probably going to be the rarity, so scores in that 140, 150 zone possibly are going to be very hard scores to chase down, provided that, again, usual story, your bowling does its job. It does some impact in the power plays, and from the power plays, then it uses that as a bit of a launch pad to really strangle the opposition batting. But look, the power hitters can still find the boundary, but they're going to have to be very, very selective and careful with their shot making, particularly if they want to swing across the line. I think the power hitters need to be looking down the ground, straighten their game up, so that, with the lower bounce or the slower pace of the ball, then at least they're hitting through the line of the ball, and that gives them greater opportunity of clearing the boundary or getting the ball to the boundary.
Okay, there's always, when you go into a T20 match or any kind of match, there are always battles within the battles. And the uniqueness of T20 is that 1-2 over burst, as you alluded to, can turn a game on its head with the bat or with the ball. For you, just from the outside, what do you think are the key battles that could decide this game?
Well, the key battles are generally always up front. There's no doubt about that. It's the power plays. It's whether teams can get off to a very good start with a harder ball. Therefore, there's more chance for the ball to bounce, to find gaps in the field because you've only got, restricted numbers out. So that really is an opportunity, particularly if we're talking about overall totals being a little bit lower, to try to exercise your capacity to score good runs in that power play and minimise your wicket loss. So I think teams would be really trying to aim for that, 45 to 55, possibly even higher if they can in that power play. So therefore, that's your key matchups. So we're looking, for India with Sharma and Rahul and Kohli at the top of the order, and then you've got Shaheen Afridi, Ralph and Ali as their key bowlers. I think that's possibly where Pakistan is, a little bit weaker. Who comes in behind, those three key bowlers? They're really, in a sense, lacking a genuine spinner, I think, that can really take some wickets or at least be economical. We saw Adam Zampa do that type of role for Australia last night against South Africa, in the 14th over. No runs, 2 wickets. And it's that type of bowler, spin bowler or backup bowler, your 4th and 5th bowlers are going to be really key as the innings progresses, particularly if those matchups right at the front haven't necessarily taken the wickets that you would like in the first place.
Okay, there is, of course, John, the larger picture. One defeat doesn't end the tournament for any team. But the stakes seem to be very high, especially for India. They've been among the top teams for the last 5 or 6 years across formats, but the trophy cabinet is bare. There's been 2 final defeats, the semi-final exit at the World Cup in 2019, Virat Kohli stepping down. There is also the Mahendra Singh Dhoni factor in the background as mentor. Is that, in your opinion, a wise call, or does it affect team dynamics?
Look, very hard to say. I mean, Dhoni's just an incredible player and has been an incredible leader around India, around Chennai Super Kings, around teams that he's been involved with. So his presence, I think, is really important. He's a calming influence. I think he's very good at summing up situations so that it's pretty clear what needs to be done. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that Virat Kohli is not doing that, but it's nice to have, I would have thought, that sort of presence in and around a dressing room when things might be a little bit emotional. Things might not necessarily be going quite the right way. Some individuals might not be feeling great. And so I think if Dhoni plays the sort of role that I would think he would, then I think he'll be a real asset to that Indian dressing room. And bear in mind, I think, as you're just saying, we look at that pool that India's in, it's really they, Pakistan, New Zealand, that stand out now that we've seen the qualifying rounds, and we've got Scotland and Namibia who've come into that pool, and they add to Afghanistan. So to one degree, India need to be not playing at their best right now. Nice to get a win if they can. That's the way you want to start a tournament. But what tournaments are about it's about building momentum. It's about gradually getting individuals games and the team game better and better as you move towards the semi-final, and that's what India need to do. They need to make sure that they can get into that semi-final. Once there, then that's when you're playing somewhere near your best. It's winner takes all virtually, and you can get through the semi-final, then you're to the final. So, there's kind of, you got to take usual cliches. You got to take one game at a time, get through that, sum that game up. Who's next? What do we need to do in terms of adjusting some of the things we've just done? What does this opposition bring? How do we use our strengths to counter their strengths or their weaknesses, and then get through that game and play the next? Just don't look too far ahead. But overall, their goal will be to increase their performance levels so that gets them into the semi-finals.
Okay, momentum. One match at a time. John knows all about it. Plenty of wins in that cabinet. Now, one of our promos, John, has you down as cricket guru. So, since you are one of the most successful coaches around in the sport, we decided, let's get the guru to play selector. Pakistan sort of seemed to have made it easy for you by naming their 12. Just tell us, what would be your team if you were going to sit and pick the Pakistan team for tonight's clash?
Well, obviously, I'm going to agree with their selectors. The only thing I'm going to do is name 12th man. And, I think you've got two oldies there in Shoaib Malik and Mohammad Hafiz. And for me, they do similar things. So it's probably, for me, a toss-up between those. Now, I'll probably lean towards Hafiz, although he was a good mate when he was at Calcutta Knight Riders early in the piece in IPL. And let Shoaib Malik take the role in this first game. But, a bit of a toss-up there. But, I think, as you say, the Pakistan selectors have made it pretty simple for us here in the studio.
Okay, but they made it easy, but now the other one is coming up. That's some big calls going to come up on your screen. So take us through what you think India should be playing.
Starting from the top, obviously, Rohit Sharma and KL Kohli, Yadav, Rishabh Pant. Then Pandya, I'm going on the basis that he may be able to bowl an over or two, but even if not, I think Kohli has already indicated that whether he can bowl or whether he can't bowl, he's the sort of guy he wants in their side. He reminds me a little bit of Andrew Simons to that degree, that he's a wonderful person to have in your dressing rooms, and he's got wonderful skills, bat, field, and bowl if need be. So, Pandya, I think there. Then Jadeja. I'd like to see Thakur play on the side, particularly, if Pandya can't bowl, you're definitely going to need that next seamer, and I think he's the right person for the conditions at the moment. Then Chakravarti, Mohammad Shami and Bumrah bring up the final 11.
Okay, this is what you've picked, but because of the conditions, do you think that you could have a completely different scenario that, the teams actually say, what, let's throw caution to the winds, let's go for it, let's mix it up, let's get in the likes of probably an Ishan Kishan or someone else and just sort of to throw the other team off their game or off their game plan? Do you think that's possible?
I think it could be possible through the tournament. I think one of the things you want to do through the tournament is somehow make sure that you can work all your players into at least having some games. And as we said, I think the pool now really does present that case. Now, no disrespect to Scotland, Namibia, and possibly Afghanistan, but I think they're the opportunities where India could do a little bit more experimentation if they need to and if they want to. And potentially there's some injuries around too, so you can give players a little bit of a rest here and there and bring the other players in. So I think that's where they'll really consider a little bit of experimentation, but I think they'll be pretty conservative against the teams like New Zealand and Pakistan.
Okay, go with your best team right now. This isn't the time to take any risks. Before I let you go, John, perhaps you could give us a quick prediction. Where do you think this one's going to go?
Oh, look, I'll stick very firmly with India. I just think they've got too many strengths all around the park. I think Pakistan rely too heavily on 2 or 3 batsmen, and as I said before, I think they lack quality spin in their side to really challenge the Indian batting. So my feeling is India should win. How comfortably, who knows? But a win will be a win, and they'd be very happy to get that, I'm sure.
I love the way you didn't even bat an eyelid and say India. If I had said that, you'd have people telling me, you're biased. But clearly it's coming from you. And you've seen the game at the top level. You sort of analyze this much more deeply than we do. At times we are guided by our passion as well. But that's it. India versus Pakistan coming up in around 30 minutes. Sit back, enjoy the game. There's a programming reminder that John is going to be back with us once that game gets over. So it's going to be pretty late at night in Brisbane, but he is going to come back and sort of help us with a detailed breakdown of how that game unfolded. Bye for now. See you as soon as that game gets over.